Hey everybody, welcome back. Psychedelic here. Welcome back to another record label spotlight video. It's been a while. I think the last one we covered was Uni Records or White Whale. One of those back in, I think, 24. The last video I did on this subject. Highly requested these ranking videos with concerning some of these psych labels back in the day. And specifically, we're going to be talking about the top 5 psychedelic LPs on the Roulette Records label. This is just my personal ranking. Doesn't mean these are the most definitive, the best of on the label. This is just specifically me revisiting all these different records that were produced on the label back during the psychedelic heyday. And I actually changed one of these last minute at the number 5 spot. I revisited, several of the LPs, and one of these is right at the number 5 spot when I thought, okay, I'm just going to be kind to this artist because he's kind of a prominent figure on the label, but we're going to talk about it. And that'll be at the more tail end of this video because we got to talk about the origin story, the formation, the Italian shenanigans that went on, of course. And then leading up to that chapter, we're going to talk about that for about 3-5 minutes, I imagine, and then talk about all these different titles that did not make the cut, kind of highlighting some different titles that might be of note to certain listeners out there, kind of fitting into this genre. And then finally leading up to chapter 3, the top 5 that made it to the list. Morris Levy. Let's talk about that guy. Levy? Yeah. That's what Tommy James referred to him as. And if he's titling his book, Me, the Mob, and the Music, you know that he's been holding that in for a long time. Once all these guys passed on, can finally talk about it, his trauma with the label. But anyways, Morris Levy. I always want to say Levy because I think of Eugene Levy. But Morris Levy, he was like the lead director of the label, of course. And I believe the label formed around the late 50s is what I'm picking up on. Producing a ton of singles, ton of 45 hits. All the way leading up to like 1963, 64. It was kind of like their last big cycle of hits, I think ending with Jimmy Rogers. And then there was like a 3-year period with not quite falling to bankruptcy, but they were like, okay, let's find this next hit. Where's it coming from? And of course, they catch wind of this little group out of the Midwest, Tommy James and the Shondells, sending demos out to New York City to all the big labels, Atlantic, Capitol, Epic, seeing if they can land a contract somewhere. And of course, they all say yes to Tommy James. But then I think it happened overnight, is what I picked up on. That then they all of a sudden said, I think we'll pass for now. Well, I thought we agreed. I thought we agreed with Atlantic Records. And I think it might have been through Atlantic Records, someone said that, well, if you know Morris Levy, you won't take no for an answer. And so that was the last label that they contacted. And, Morris is kind of one of those guys. I would imagine that would be a side character in Goodfellas. You think I'm funny how? You think I'm a clown, like I amuse you kind of guy? I'm going to bust your balls, Tony, if you don't give me this group, the Shondells. So their big hit, which came out first, Hanky Panky, was just a massive hit regionally. And then so it got picked up by Roulette, of course. And I'm going to pull my phone out just to make sure I'm not skipping any of these titles here. So Hanky Panky. And then these are some of the LPs that came along that I jotted down. It's Only Love. I Think We're Alone Now. Getting Together. Moni Moni. Just a whole string of continuous hits that Tommy James was only seeing like a brown paper sack full of cash. I think it was like $10,000 maybe they got paid. But considering all the royalties they were making off at this time, it sounds like Morris was hiding all those royalties of, say, 30 to 40 million over the course of his whole stardom career, all the way leading into the 80s, which Morris eventually got caught extorting some of the cash, and just a whole lot of different settlements and lawsuits pursued, and eventually he was supposed to appear in court for some jail time. He passed of liver cancer just before he could serve some jail time. So quite a tale. There's a whole lot of details wrapped up into all that. that I just kind of skewed over. But for the list purposes, we are just going to jump right into some of the different titles and then maybe sort of hint little bits and pieces of the story as we roll along. So I kind of jotted down some of the Shondells records first. This is the one that actually got kicked out of the number 5 spot that I own. This is Crimson and Clover. This might be my favorite studio LP of theirs. I think this might have been one of their best sellers. This is actually a second copy I have of this now. I used to have another copy that was just beat to hell as a kid. I picked this up when I was like 10 years old, and it was kind of a thrift store staple for quite a while. This copy's, probably a strong VG, plays pretty well. The whole side one, I just absolutely love of this. I grew up on this music, and to me, I simply see it more than just simply bubblegum, which they kind of get lumped into sometimes. They're just really good pop songs. The original Crimson and Clover LP cut, 5.5 minutes. Kathleen MacArthur, of course, I Am a Tangerine, Do Something to Me, and then right on the flip side, they're one of their best hits, Crystal Blue Persuasion. Love the harmonies that they always broke out in. And yeah, this just quite fell a little short on the top 5, but number 5 spot, happy to say it's a Tommy James produced LP, so he still made his way there in some form. I've never owned Cellophane Symphony. I am aware of it, and I've revisited it. I'd really say just the first track is really kind of where they get maybe the most tripped out. It's definitely a standout track. I think it lasts about 9 minutes long. It's the title track, right? Then I visited this one for the first time, Travelin'. Finds him a little more in a kind of progressing towards a more hard rock style, with definitely some trippy moments here and there. I definitely love how he's kind of kicking on the psychedelic bandwagon for a time. And then, of course, he's got his self-titled solo record, Tommy James, with the cool psychedelic artwork with the black and white illustration of his portrait, with this kind of like just rainbow color land in the background. Really cool cover. Midnight Train was probably my favorite on there, but otherwise maybe not one of the strongest from the output concerning Tommy James in general. And then that leads us to jumping into some of these other ones here. Hog Heaven, I think that is the Shondells without Tommy James, if I remember correctly, from 1971. I used to own that LP, had a few cuts that I liked, but not enough to keep it. I probably only kept it for maybe 6-7 months and then parted ways with it. The Rabble, they're a Canadian group, 1968 this came out. It was originally on a Canadian label and then got distributed by Roulette in the US. Pretty elusive title, you don't see it very often. It's got an alternate album sleeve, and it's kind of got this non-commercial, kind of bizarre, Frank Zappa-esque kind of garage pop sound to it. Not really finding much attraction in there for me musically, but it is an interesting listen, interesting curio for its time. I find there's other LPs of that style of more interest and is not going to make the top 5. I just jotted this one down. So this was on a small sub-label of Roulette's. Originally, and it's an artist called Shadow Man, Come Live With Me. I didn't listen to this one because I think it is from another country or something like that, and just didn't give it time to listen to it, but it has some connections to Roulette in a way. Don Cooper, self-titled, 1969. I actually thrifted this one once. You might have another LP too. I found it to be pretty boring folk, singer-songwriter. It's got some harmonica, kind of bluesy, and pretty subdued. I just didn't really find much flavor in that one. This artist, I've known about. I just never see his LPs out there, and they're pretty cheap. I'm actually thinking of picking up a record by Don Crawford. He's got like 4 different LPs. I think there might be just 3 on Roulette. And Roots and Branches is like the first one. Another Shade of Black has a couple cool moments. But the one I really liked upon revisiting is Would You Understand My Nakedness from 1971. It's got a cool blending of 2 images on the cover. two really good standouts, Princess of the Nile and See Me As I Am. I didn't jot that track down. I think that's what it's called, See Me As I Am. It's got this kind of tribal, meditative kind of folk approach. Kind of reminds me of Dennis Stoner in a way, if you guys know that LP. I need to pick up on that. I think you can find copies for like $5 to $10. Charisma. It's got a very cool looking cover with the sort of Christmas colors, the green and red. They had a couple LPs. This is from 1969. Did not leave a great impression on me upon revisiting it or initially. But if I see it out there in the wild for $5, I might pick up on it. I think it might go for a bit more than that though. It's kind of your standard, kind of typical pop rock with, you know, very light psych appeal, some fuzz here and there, but nothing really substantial in the songwriting. And then the next one, this is all one word, Morgan Mason Downs from 1970. Never seen this one before out in person. I jotted some notes for this one. Beautiful, delicate coffeehouse styled contemporary folk. Features the lady from The Trout on MGM. I think she started out in Broadway, and you can kind of hear that coffeehouse Broadway East Coast kind of style in their music. And then I just put down a lot like Jarez on Decca being a three-piece, you know, two guys and a lady. And it's pretty good. I enjoyed it. But yeah, no psych appeal really. There might be just a hint of that counterculture in there, but it's a pretty low-key contemporary folk kind of affair. We're kind of rolling into the 70s as this list goes along. Ilmo Smokehouse. Didn't have a whole lot to say about this one, except it's kind of a heavier blues rock approach. Not for me. Just did not have enough strength to make it onto this list. This is kind of a new discovery for me. I may have crossed paths with this over time, but it seems to be a little more on the pricier side when you spot this one. But this is Latin funk and soul out of New York City and has a bit of social commentary, and we're talking about Harlem River Drive from 1971. Latin roots, and I think it's got some connection to Aretha Franklin, I read. I didn't pick up on that, like what it was all about. There must be some connection, like maybe some of the band members backed Aretha Franklin up back in the day. And like I said, yeah, some social commentary tracks. It's got really great, tight instrumentation on there. But again, it's kind of more in the Latin funk area. And if you want to coin it as psychedelic, maybe a little bit in the instrumentation. Gets a little heady in spots, but not your traditional, typical, what you would think psychedelic would be. But I wouldn't mind owning that. The next one, I just jotted down that this features Fane Jade, and this is Dust Bowl Clementine from 1972. Quite an obscure one. I've never seen it out in person. I think it does go for some chunk of change. I just remember it had a couple good moments. The moments I heard online, I couldn't find the whole LP up on YouTube. It doesn't seem to be streamable. So, but from what I gather, it's got these kind of lengthier country rock kind of cuts. Kind of where country rock would lead to in the mid 70s. And yeah, it features the lead guy from Fane Jade. It's kind of interesting. These two I listened to, Fluff, F-L-U-F-F, not the other Fluff, from 1972. It's got some colorful artwork. It reminded me of Cottonwood, the one we talked about on ABC not too long ago. It's got kind of a hard, cuspy, rural rock sound with a couple good moments, I said. It's got some Leslie speaker guitar kind of running through the amp. Not too bad. I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I would. And then this is one I was not familiar with at all. Did not know of this one. Now We're Even by a band called Clinic, 1973. I just jotted down progressive pop with Hammond and synthesizer moments. Sometimes folk influences in a Crosby, Stills, Nash way. And it was recorded in France. Maybe the band was from France. I didn't see where they're originally from, but it sounds like this is like their only LP. And a couple more titles here, leading more into the mid-70s. We got a group called Truth, self-titled from 1975. Again, this is more of a jazz-centric blues kind of funk affair. I think they're from also New York City, and it's got a cool album art, but not psychedelic in any way. And then the last one, this one goes into 1977, was not familiar with this one either. Sunshine, self-titled, almost kind of rubs off as one of those tax scam kind of records around the same time Stonewall came out. And I don't know much about Sunshine though, except that it sounds like it might be some kind of easy listening, AM Gold, yacht rock kind of thing. Sounds like it's up Crazy Jimmy's area. If he doesn't own it by now, sounds like it's up his alley. And that's all I got for the LPs, so it was actually a lot more condensed, a lot more reduced than I thought regarding the list. I thought there'd be a little more on the label, but Tommy James seemed to have a lot of involvement, of course. And I also pointed out Stonewall, which is through Tiger Lily. That's got some connections with Roulette being kind of a front for tax scam evasion. I also got this one here, 32,000 Heavy Balloon, which is on the Elephant 5 Limited, which only had like a few releases itself. So they've been doing it since the beginning, it seems like. Morris is a bad dude. I only jotted just a few singles just to, name off some cool artists like The Third Bardo, First Crow to the Moon, and then one that I'd like to pick up down the road, The Mass with Raining Sorrow. It's a good two-sider. That's kind of like some downer, psych rock, kind of garagey. I just jotted down those singles just to name drop some more psychedelic related titles. That brings us to the top 5. Took out Crimson and Clover. Wonder what else could be on the list. Shouldn't be too hard to figure out if you guys know your history with Roulette. So at the number 5 spot, this one really impressed me upon this revisit. I hadn't streamed it in maybe 4 or 5 years. And I don't remember why I parted with the LP. I liked it. I guess I was just kind of in a bundle where something fell into the shop and I just took it along with this batch of records I had and left it behind. But thankfully, I think it's still pretty cheap. I think it's still like under 20 bucks, I would assume. And we're talking about Alive and Kickin' from 1970. I think I have their single somewhere. Hit the number 7 spot on the Billboard at the time, Tighter, Tighter, which was written by Tommy James. He lended them that song when they got into the studio. But it's not only that song, that's kind of like the weakest cut for me. It's what continues on the LP that I really enjoyed. It's kind of got this kind of funky edge to it, acid rock flavored funk rock with a little bit of like soulful leanings going on. And of course the album art with them in the waves, breaking through the waves there on the ocean. It's one of those titles that you don't see the LP as much as the single, I feel like. And I used to have one where it had the 2 hype stickers pasted on the cover. Some used copy that I used to have. But I wouldn't mind owning this again because I really enjoyed the production value too. Like, everything was just mic'd up really nicely, especially the percussive side. The percussion, the fuzz-flavored guitar in the background occasionally was really hot in the mix. And everything was just really, the whole package outside of Tighter Tighter was really nice. And I don't know who they really remind me of. It kind of reminds me of maybe like The Art of Lovin', if they had a little bit of that soulful, funky edge. But it still sounds like they're kind of lingering around 1968 style kind of psych rock rather than 70. And maybe it was recorded the year prior, I don't know, but really impressed me upon revisiting it. And they were also based from the Brooklyn, NYC area when they got the contract. And then that leads us to the number 4 spot. And like I said, these are all records that I do own at this point. Kind of a slept-on title. I don't see a whole lot of people talking about this one, but I sure do like it. And this is Thunder Tree. Kind of a strange artwork, illustration going on here with this 1984, corporate guy holding a cabaret stripper as a rag doll with, some really strange stuff going on in the background there. Self-titled, one and only LP. I think these guys were from Minnesota. It says it was recorded at UA Studios in Minneapolis, which I am just now learning it was recorded at UA, which I have a few vanity titles through that label, like in Minnesota. So it was actually recorded there. Didn't know that. Kind of series of different songs here. Head Ambers, which some of the songs kind of tricky. You might think it might be going kind of down this kind of cheesy, rootsy path that they go on. But then halfway through Head Ambers, it gets kind of spatial and you're like, oh, okay, I'm listening. And then leads us into some more kind of pop psych stuff. Summertime Children in the Morning's got some cool fuzz. It's kind of a simple riff. Dusty Road might be the weakest link on this one. It's a little ragtimey. But once you flip it onto the sidelong track, 1225, it's got these little different interludes happening with different segments on the flip side. And that's like the strongest stuff. You wouldn't think the sidelong track would be maybe the best track, but I think it might be. As a whole, it works really well as a suite. I think it's one of two on the Big 7 Music Corporation. It's got a lot of publishing behind this. I'm pretty sure Gearson or Outsider, one of those labels, have reissued it in recent years. And now we're going to get finally a look at the label. The very iconic roulette wheel, which I always have loved. And of course, the roulette label, I forgot to mention, was of course a front for covering up some family crime. It's like a crime family kind of front for taking all the royalties. So a lot of these bands experienced not so many clear checks in the mail, let's say. Number 3 spot, The Fallen Angels, of course. This is a Scorpio reissue. If you know, you know. This is kind of the one that's favored, of course, over the debut record, which I used to have. I used to own that one. What's the opening track? Room at the Top? Roof at the Top? Is of course a great opening track, but doesn't really sustain the same kind of power that this one has, or the same type of magic. They seem to be yearning for something a little stronger in this one, like a lot of different classical elements, folk, traditional folk kind of things, pop and rock. Not so much rock on this one, and not as psyched out as you may think the cover depicts. It's a lot more kind of a subtle, slow burn that eventually grows on you on repeated listens. Always love that back shot with the no eyes. Just really crazy illustration too. This is one of the more tougher, probably the toughest of the roulette titles out there, because I don't think they even pressed very many of these, if I remember correctly. I think they were just running out of money at the time, and it just really tanked. And so when you spot originals of this, they go for a very hefty price tag for a good reason. If I had to name some tracks right offhand, Look at the Wind is a big standout for me. I'll Drive You From My Mind, which probably gets the most tripped out. Love the title track. It's a Long Way Down. Something New You Can Hide In. It reminds me of like the Freeborn Peak Impressions when they get kind of subtle, and use of bells and some of the jazz guitar licks in here kind of remind me of them. And good sounding pressing, of course. I don't know if it's been repressed recently, but this is kind of an older Scorpio press. Pretty cool. Number 2. So number 1 and number 2, of course, you may have already nailed these down if you know your psych. They're probably both interchangeable for me. They're both really great on their own terms. And of course, we're talking about Topeka, Kansas with Morning Dew. Again, another Scorpio reissue. This is one that came out in 2002. So this was a little pricey even when I picked this up. Of course, Morning Dew. This has some really great tracks. Then Came the Light. Cherry Street gets really, heavy, thick on that fuzz. My favorite track is probably Gypsy. The first track on side 2 kind of has this like kind of slow, murky guitar working in with some organ, and then they get really amped up and fast-paced and just really rocks out. So yeah, they were recording around, I think, Columbia, Missouri, and then they just passed out some different demos out to New York City. And of course, Morris got the bug in his ear, and some of the executives were kind of excited for this group. And this one I think notably came out a little late too. This got recorded in '69 and then came out like late 1970. So a bit behind the times once this finally got released. But yeah, Morning Dew, this is a smoker, man. And then of course Something You Say might be the least favorite on here. It's right after that Amazing Gypsy, they go into this sort of like whimsy Baroque pop out of nowhere. But great diversity, great playing. And you know, the psychedelic trip meter is not super high on this, but it's a little more kind of a straight ahead hard rock, but it's got the chops though that you're looking for. Yeah, until I spot an original dropping into the shop, I probably won't be picking this up online, but yeah, this is like a 4.5 out of 5 star LP for me. Then of course that leads us to number 1, the US imported UK group that found themselves on the US label Roulette. And we're talking Arzachel. I think we're all saying Arzachel. I'm pretty sure I've been saying Arzachel for quite a while now. This is an original press. And again, this is one of those Big 7 Music Core produced titles. And of course, Arzachel features Steve Hillage under a pseudonym. They all got really funky pseudonyms on the back. Pre-Egg, the group Egg on Duram. And for what this is, man, this came out like, what, 69? Maybe recorded the year prior. Way ahead of the game as far as where progressive music was going. You know, kind of in the same headspace as Gong and Egg, of course. Pre-ELP, all those progressive groups to come. I mean, this is like definitely one of the first. King Crimson. A lot of improv on here, especially on side 2. But some really amazing standout tracks. Garden of Earthly Delights. The instrumental, the 3rd track. I always forget the titles sometimes. Leg. On here it's called Soul Thing. Oh, Soul Thing, and then in quotations, Queen Saint Gang. That's right. Yeah, it's got this very cathedral, heavy organ sound. Some really fiery guitar in some spots. And just really washed in that reverb. Just really, really dominates on all levels. And I mean, the hype's real. I'm not going to say too much about this. I mean, if you know, this is just a really killer record. I think I might prefer this color variation too, compared to the blue. I like that sort of hot pink, red hue going on. It's kind of interesting it was released on Roulette. I could see this being on, like, say, the Philips label maybe, because I know there's some UK groups like, well, they're a Welsh group, Manpower. I could see them landing on Philips themselves. And then what's the other group? The Motions? Yeah, that's the one. And Manpower, the Welsh group. I know there's been some bands on different other major labels. What's the other one on Fontana? Blonde. That group. And found their way to major labels. But of all labels, Roulette, this one landed on. It's kind of strange. Arzachel, yeah, this is one of my very prized possessions for sure. You just never see this one anymore. Yeah, it's got a lot of fans. Let's see if we can get a shot of the label here for y'all. I picked this up from Constantine's collection. If you guys remember, some years ago, he was selling his whole catalog on Instagram some years ago, and we cut out a deal on this. So yeah, Roulette. Sorry, it's a little blurry. I'm always trying to fix that, but it doesn't seem to want to focus sometimes. And I sometimes always forget what side 2 sounds like, but I just remember it's very, very heavy, very dominating with some clean, innocent fun. Arzachel, there you have it. Hope you enjoyed the list. Hope there was something for you to take away from this list, going back and revisit like I did. And I'll just say it. I'll say the label I'm thinking of covering. I was thinking of maybe covering the Reprise label. That's definitely one that I think would be kind of interesting to touch upon. And yeah, there's a lot of titles on there. But if I was able to do Capitol and Uni, I can handle it. maybe. So yeah, that's the plan. I don't know when that video will come about, but I do have a few more to talk about as far as used finds. I've been picking a few up at the local shop, and I'm going to leave it with that. So Roulette, Morris Levy and Co. They got the royalties, but thankfully, I like Tommy James' attitude about it. It's kind of nice that he's been publicly speaking out the last 15, 20 years, however long it's been since the passing of some of these old executives behind the scene, working behind Levy, and Roulette Records down for the books. So take care. Till next time, let me know what your top 5 are. We'll see you soon.